My twin painted me as jealous and violent, and my parents took his side. Now they're begging, but I made them face a truth they can't escape. I'm a 28-year-old female with a twin brother. Growing up, my twin brother and I experienced vastly different treatment from our parents. For some reason, my parents were certain that my brother was destined for greatness, whereas I was labeled the black sheep. I was more interested in sports and making friends than in studying, and they continually compared us, which was discouraging and damaged my self-esteem from an early age as a child. I had to watch my brother enjoy elaborate birthday parties with his friends while I was treated as an afterthought. He frequently had sleepovers with his pals, whereas I was never allowed to bring my friends home. To be honest, I dreaded every moment of my youth. My grandmother was the only person in the family who seemed to care about me. When she visited, she always brought me my favorite chocolates and occasionally gave me a few dollars to treat myself. As the years went by, this overt preference for my twin brother evolved into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents would openly insult my academics and activities. No matter how hard I tried, I could never satisfy their expectations of being the ideal child. Although I excelled at athletics, they forbade me from participating in extracurricular activities because they wanted me to focus entirely on my education, just like my brother. As a child, I felt frustrated and helpless. During my sophomore year, I was grounded again, this time for using Snapchat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong, but like all teenagers, I downloaded the app to stay in touch with my friends. However, my parents considered this a major crime and a violation of trust because they had barred me from talking with my friends. They went crazy, flung all of my belongings around the room, ripped the doors from their hinges, and informed me I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents attack me in this way, my twin brother, rather than sticking up for me, made things worse. Our parents' wrongful acts created a toxic environment, allowing him to take advantage of the situation. He developed a habit of lying about me, falsely accusing me of things I never did so he could get away with everything. If he stole something, he'd easily shift the blame onto me, and my parents, who were already inclined to believe the worst about me, readily accepted his falsehoods. He would insult me in front of my schoolmates and mock my attractiveness. Despite this, I had a large circle of friends at school because I was personable and eager to connect. My twin, on the other hand, struggled socially and disliked that I could interact with others, while he, as an introvert, felt uncomfortable. This jealousy boiled over during our 14th birthday party, when none of his friends showed up. I'm not sure why they did that to him, but in stark contrast, my friends treated me to ice cream, and I had a fantastic day. This irritated my brother even more. To get retribution, he started spreading false tales about me at school, depicting me as a spoiled brat. He falsely accused me of physically assaulting him at home. Since our parents favored him, he escalated the situation without my knowledge. To fake proof, he would punch himself, causing injuries such as a black eye or a bruised shoulder. The next day, he would boldly stroll into school, displaying his self-inflicted injuries as evidence of my alleged assault. When our parents questioned him about the injuries, he would lie, claiming they resulted from innocent activities like playing football with friends. The lies and his supposed black eyes gained traction, and many began to believe his twisted account of events. It didn't take long for whispers to spread, and my friends began to look at me suspiciously. At first, I noticed minor changes. Friends who used to chat with me in the halls seemed distant, and invitations to group hangouts grew fewer and farther between. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and people were unwilling to engage with the allegedly pampered girl accused of violence. One day, I gathered the courage to ask my ex-best friend what had happened between us. She revealed that my twin brother had been spreading falsehoods about me, disclosing the specifics of the lies he had told everyone, accusing me of actions I had never committed. I was stunned to hear her remarks. The emotion was a combination of incredulity and betrayal, as if the ground beneath me had given way. My brother, whom I grew up with, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I would never even consider doing. It was a betrayal that struck deep, leaving me with a knot in my stomach and a sorrowful heart. I confronted my brother the following day at school, but he ignored me. I begged him to stop lying about me, but he smirked and said I deserved to die alone. I was at a loss for words since his lies and actions were beginning to frighten me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was scared they would believe my brother instead of me. The isolation stung, especially since I had always been open to making friends. My brother's jealousy-fueled lies seemed to be tearing apart the bonds I had built over the years. The rumors spread to teachers as well. It was a strange sensation, as if I were living in a parallel realm where my true self was obscured by the wicked fiction told by my own twin. The lies had progressed beyond typical teenage chatter. They were now influencing how others regarded me. The unpleasant whispers swiftly reached my principal's ears, and my worst nightmare became reality. The principal summoned me, my brother, and our parents to his office to discuss the alleged rumors. I sat there, my heart racing, as the principal demanded the truth. I believed my brother would finally come clean, but he doubled down on his lies. He told the principal that the reports were true and depicted me as a bully who beat him up when our parents were not around. I couldn't believe it. Shock rushed over me as my brother continued to weave this twisted story about how I was jealous of him for receiving more attention from our parents. He clung to his story like glue, despite it being entirely fabricated. After hearing my brother's story, my mother burst into tears and clutched him like he was a hero. My father tried to console my brother, assuring him that it was brave of him to speak up and that he would ensure nothing bad happened to him. Following that day, I attempted to defend myself, arguing with the principal that everything was fabricated. I felt as if I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to reach the surface, but my brother persisted, claiming I was a furious, violent person who took out my emotions on him every day. My mother's tears flowed as she grabbed onto my brother and gave me accusing stares. It was like fighting against a wall of belief in my brother's fabricated story. The principal sharply chastised me, stating that the school did not tolerate bullying, and that these were grounds for suspension. I begged him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't simply let it go. I implored him, tears streaming down my cheeks, trying to explain that I hadn't done anything to my brother. The principal sternly informed me that I would be suspended for 10 days to set an example for others not to bully anyone. It hit me hard, and I began crying even more, practically begging him to reconsider. My parents, outraged and embarrassed by the incident, hauled me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to argue my case and make them understand, but they weren't having it. We left the school, my heart full of frustration and embarrassment. When we arrived home, things changed drastically. My father started packing my belongings out of the blue. I was stunned, perplexed, and had no idea what was going on. My mother asked him what he was doing, but he simply yelled that he couldn't allow me to live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was crying, virtually on my knees, and begged my brother to tell them the truth, but he remained cold, unmoved by my feelings. My father kept packing my belongings before throwing the bag into our foyer. I clung to my father's legs, begging him not to kick me out. It felt like a nightmare was unfolding. He informed me that a bully like me did not deserve to reside in his home and that he would call his mother, my grandmother, to come and pick me up if she wished. It felt as if the world had collapsed beneath me. I stood there in disbelief, surrounded by my belongings scattered across the foyer, booted out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She helped me gather all my belongings and load them into the car. She helped me into the passenger seat and ensured I was wearing my seatbelt before walking toward my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my father opened it, she began yelling at him for treating me this way. With firm determination, she informed him that if he ever approached or attempted to contact me again, she would not hesitate to call the police or Child Protective Services, as what he had done to a child like me could land him in jail. My mother tried to shift the blame, saying it was my fault, but my grandmother was having none of it. She stood firm, defending me, and emphasized that I was only a child and did not deserve to be treated in such a harsh manner. That was the first time I realized how powerful my grandmother was. She did not cower before my parents, and unlike them, she trusted me. We eventually drove away, leaving behind my house, the only place I had ever grown up in. I can't even begin to describe how excruciatingly painful I felt at the time. I recall crying on the bed and refusing to eat anything despite my grandmother's insistence. When I told her what my brother had done, she was astonished as well. She told me that she believed my version of the story, and I was relieved to have at least one person on my side. When the 10-day suspension was lifted, returning to school was like walking back into the lion's den. As I entered the familiar hallways, my classmates' expressions spoke volumes, judgmental murmurs and sidelong stares. The weight of the false accusations lingered in the air. Meanwhile, my brother shamelessly ignored me, acting as if I didn't exist. He had made friends with a few people who believed his version of the story and saw him as the victim of my attacks. I tried to tell everyone my side of the story, but it went unheard. I was an outsider, saddled with an unfair reputation that stuck to me like a shadow no matter where I went. In the classroom, the cafeteria, or the corridors, the eyes that met mine were filled with contempt and suspicion. I became a loner. I would keep my head down, attend all my lessons, eat lunch alone in the cafeteria, and then return home. I didn't have any friends, and it seemed like no one wanted me there. Throughout this, my parents never called to check on me. My grandmother continuously reminded me that this was not my fault and that things would eventually be fine. I graduated from high school with good grades and looked forward to attending college, where I hoped to have a better life. It wasn't until I went away to college that I discovered what freedom felt like for the first time. No one was looking over my shoulder, comparing my grades or trying to compete with me. I met and became friends with people who shared my interests. Despite the mental and physical scars left by my family and classmates over the years, I focused on putting it all behind me and making the most of my college experience. During this period, I realized I had an aptitude for content writing. I had always wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it would work out in the long run. As a result, I initially chose to give up on my dream. However, to supplement my income, I began working as a freelance writer. I signed up for several freelancing websites, which helped me secure tasks from well-known companies. This is how I gradually began to build a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained my side hustle and never asked my parents for a penny. When I finished college, instead of taking a corporate job, I realized I could work full-time as a content writer. I was doing well since I had numerous clients and long-term professional relationships with them, allowing me to work on multiple projects. Having a respectable freelancing business not only gave me financial independence, but also enabled me to explore the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal from my past, even if it was not easy. I saved as much money as I could and took a gamble on myself. I've seen a lot of the world over the years, but there's always so much more to see. My grandmother was the only person I considered family throughout all of this, and I cherished her. She was quite unhappy when I moved out, but she knew I needed to be self-sufficient. Despite my tight schedule, I made it a point to be available for her whenever possible. On weekends, I would visit her, frequently eating meals or simply sitting on the porch, absorbed in conversations about everything from childhood memories to current events. I would spend entire days assisting her with household tasks or taking her to the nearby park for a leisurely walk. I recently completed one of the most important assignments of my career. While I can't reveal the name, I was extraordinarily fortunate to write articles and product descriptions for them. After the job was completed, I asked the team I worked with to submit great evaluations on my websites, which they were delighted to do. I took screenshots of several of their reviews and shared them on Instagram, knowing that collaborating with this brand was a big deal. As expected, several other content writers congratulated me on my professional accomplishments, and some even shared my article to help spread the word. This is how I began receiving messages from strangers who also wanted assistance with their websites. My family noticed this as well, and some contacted me to express their congratulations. My college's principal eventually called me, seeing that I was doing well, and invited me to come to the college for a seminar to talk to students about starting a career as a content writer. I was apprehensive because I'm not good at public speaking, but I decided to take a chance and agreed. When I found myself standing in front of expectant faces, sharing my experiences and insights, I felt as if my life had come full circle. In my speech, I discussed my hardships and how I pushed hard to keep going despite the difficult times. It was a truly rewarding experience to encourage others and contribute to the growth of the writing community. Some of my videos went viral on Facebook as people connected with them. It felt fantastic to be finally recognized for my efforts. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news program. It was a show about the benefits of content creation, and they asked me to share my experiences and insights with their audience. I was nervous, yet excited about the prospect. During the event, I discussed my journey, the value of customer feedback, and how a simple appreciation message could lead to fantastic opportunities. The chance to reach a larger audience and encourage more professionals in the field was both humbling and exciting. When it finally aired, I uploaded some of these snippets on Instagram since I was honored to be invited to a TV show. This is how my relatives and cousins first learned about my professional accomplishments because my parents never mentioned me to anyone. They had no idea I was working with well-known brands and appearing on television shows. Word quickly spread among my family. I guess this TV interview must have reached my parents' ears because just a few days later I was working on another project while keeping my phone on mute. When I finished my work, I checked my phone and was surprised to find 6 missed calls from my mother. I was astonished to see her name on my phone because it had been a long time since she had called me. After so many years of silence, I couldn't understand why she was reaching out. I hesitantly called her back, and she answered right away. I asked her if everything was fine, and my mother began to congratulate me. My father, who was most likely sitting directly next to her, also joined in on the conversation. He began to ask about my life and well-being, and I responded without much thought. It didn't strike me as odd until they asked how much I was earning these days. I explained that it was none of their business. My father replied, "We're family, so don't be shy about telling us your income." I assured him that I was doing well financially. Hearing this, my mother proceeded to describe how difficult their life was these days, and my brow furrowed in suspicion. This is how our conversation went. "Bricky, Mom, we're retired now, and we've wanted to renovate the house for a while. It's not in great shape, but we don't have any funds left." "Brooka, me, okay." "Brooka, Mom, your success has given us hope. We saw your interview today and thought you might be able to assist us by paying for the renovations, Dad. After all, we are family. Please don't hesitate to share some of your revenue with us. We genuinely need your help." "Bro, me, are you kidding me? Why are you asking for money when you haven't even spoken to me in years? I'm not sure what prompted you to contact me, and while I appreciate your congratulations, I won't be able to assist you." Hearing this, my mother began telling me that I was being selfish and that I needed to support them as a family. My father emphasized that, as my parents, they deserved to be cared for, and that this was the least I could do. I was so angry at this point that I wanted to tell them off. Suddenly, I had an idea. Instead of simply disagreeing with them, I would teach them a lesson once and for all for thinking they could mooch off me after mistreating me for so many years. I told them that I was willing to help them, provided they agreed to my demands. My father was curious and asked what they were. Without hesitation, I made my demand. If they wanted my assistance, they had to publicly confess in front of our family and friends that my brother was the mastermind behind the false stories that had harmed my reputation. I wanted them to embarrass my brother in front of everyone, just as they had humiliated me by believing his lies and manipulations. I wanted them to take responsibility for their actions and acknowledge the pain they had caused. Hearing my ultimatum, my father began to question the necessity of such an admission. My mother told me that it was unnecessary and that we could have a private discussion without involving others, but I stood firm. This was a non-negotiable requirement for any further aid they wanted me to provide. As the tension rose, my father raised his voice, asserting his authority as my father, and began to emphasize that it was my responsibility to assist my family in need. My mother, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to do the right thing and help them, citing the years they had spent raising me. I couldn't help but see the irony in their sudden affection. I reminded them of the past, that they had kicked me out, and that my grandmother, not them, had raised me. They became increasingly angry, but I told them unequivocally that if they wanted to approach me and request financial aid, the truth had to be acknowledged publicly, and my brother had to face the consequences of his actions. Since this conversation, my parents have been calling me often, but I'm ignoring them. I'm beginning to regret even calling them back that day. I'd like to know if I'd be a complete fool if I didn't aid my parents. It's been a crazy week since I last shared my story, and the outpouring of support and encouragement has been astounding. It's reassuring to know that I'm not alone. At this moment, I'm grateful everyone believes that I shouldn't interact with my parents or even consider assisting them after everything they've put me through. I gave them such a requirement because I knew they would be unable to comply. I know they love my brother too much, and even if they've realized by now that it was all his lies, I know they'll never put him through what they did to me. My brother sent me a nasty text message today after my parents tried to call me again, and I refused to answer. This is what he wrote. "Hey sis, I haven't seen you in a long time, and I can tell you that every day without you has been wonderful. I heard Mom and Dad contacted you, and you offered them a strange ultimatum. You're aware that they will never go through with it, right? They plainly never loved you and will never hurt me. I admit I lied about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time, so stop being so self-centered and try to move on from the past. You're unmarried and childless, so why not help them out by paying for their home repairs and renovations? Do the right thing and become a better daughter." Seeing the message felt like a stab in the chest. The audacity to dismiss the hardships I had endured and the conditions I had set revealed his lack of empathy. The attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my single and childless status added an extra layer of insensitivity. His suggestion that I should prioritize their needs over my own was not only disrespectful but also demonstrated how little he valued me. Fueled by frustration and a strong desire for justice, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands and expose the truth that had been buried for far too long. I sat down to compose an email to my parents and close relatives, detailing the traumatic events of my upbringing and the unfair treatment I had received while growing up in my family home. In the email, I highlighted the tight and restrictive environment I faced at home, as well as how my parents treated me differently from my twin brother. I also delved into the spiteful and utterly false rumors my brother had spread about me at school, which had resulted in serious consequences and ruined my reputation. I wrote about how my parents had kicked me out and that, if it hadn't been for my grandmother, I could have ended up on the streets. Toward the conclusion, I asked everyone to read a message my brother had sent me. I enclosed a screenshot in which he admitted to lying about me. It was a simple confession, and I hoped it would reveal the lies that had persisted for too long. I sent the email just an hour ago, and I know what will happen when my parents and brother see it. I'll let you know how my family reacts to my email. My parents have faced criticism from relatives who were previously unaware of the extent of their favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members contacted me, saying they had no idea about everything and apologized for not being there for me. My brother and dad sent me a barrage of text messages that became increasingly hostile and aggressive, so I contacted a lawyer who issued them a cease and desist notice. It basically told them not to approach me again, and if they did, they would face severe legal penalties. I guess this spooked them because they stopped contacting me. My grandmother believes I did the right thing by telling everyone what happened, and she fully supports me. She is the only person who matters to me, so I'm delighted she has my back. It's been 2 months since my last post, and I'm pleased to say that everything is going well in my life right now. Professionally, my article writing business has thrived. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts continue to come in, confirming my status as a recognized expert in my field. I'm as close to my grandmother as ever. I recently took a 1-week sabbatical from work to spend quality time with her. She is into gardening these days and has taught me a lot about the many flowers and herbs in her yard. My favorite and most cherished memories are of spending time with her, whether we were sharing meals, having profound conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company. My family hasn't contacted me since they received the letter from my lawyer, so I'm glad they're staying away. Personally, I've started attending therapy in the hopes of working on my own recovery.